My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to talk about a very important subject. It's about having boundaries and how important they are. The main thing that you're going to hear today is that I believe that saying no is not selfish. And I go over this a lot with clients, whether it's in my personal training business or with my therapy business. So it's really important, and I want to go over this, and I want to show you what I mean, that saying no is actually not selfish. But I want to start off with the story. I think it's important to at least show some respect for people in your life that may have taught you something. Then it teaches other people to also have respect for people in their life who have taught them things. And I want to go back to 7th grade. And I remember my teacher, Mr. DeBrita. I think it was, 7th grade. I was probably about 12 years old. It was algebra class. And I was terrible at algebra. But that's not the part of the story I want to talk about. What he did was he said that everybody had to bring in 2 number 2 pencils with erasers on them. And I needed them because I made a ton of mistakes. But the point was that everybody was supposed to come in prepared with that. And as young kids do, most kids did not come in with 2 number 2 pencils with erasers. And a lot of times kids would come in with no pencils at all. And what would happen, of course, is as class started, they would ask to borrow a pencil from one of the other students. And I was one of those students. And what would happen is that you would give a pencil to somebody to help them out. And they might be finishing up a math problem or writing down some notes. And instead of just being calm about it, I know from my point of view, I was really uptight. And I was getting nervous because I was losing ground and I wasn't learning the things that I should, and I was falling behind. And a lot of kids did this. And Mr. DeBrita was kind of a renaissance guy for his time, because this is a long time ago. And not only was he good at math, but he was probably one of the best teachers in junior high at that time, but he quit really within only a couple of years because he wanted to get into a new field that was going to be big that nobody understood, and he wanted to be a computer programmer. But also with that, he also taught us a little bit about life. And I'll remember this. His thought was that you should not give anything to anybody that you don't already have. So if you have 2 pencils with erasers, sure, give one up for a little while, no problem. But if you only have 1 pencil, why would you give it up to somebody? And he said, you're going to go through more aggravation, more pain, and you're not going to like that other kid or that other student anyway. So you might as well just stop the whole problem and just say the word no. It's only 1 syllable and it's 2 letters. It should be easy enough to say. We should all practice it. The word no. So I want to use that as the backdrop for today's show. So number 1, why do people say yes or commit to doing things that they don't want to do? And as I ask that, I think you already know the answer. There's plenty of anecdotal evidence and plenty of empirical evidence to show you that the number 1 answer is that people don't want to feel guilty. They don't want to feel bad. And so that's true. Now, if somebody asks you for something and you feel like you should do it and you say no, you might feel some guilt. But worse than that, you might feel like you're being a bad person. And that's even worse, because it's not that you did a bad thing. It means that you're actually a bad person. And if you feel like you're a bad person in that moment, then you're going to feel shame. And there's a lot of difficult emotions that we all experience as a human being. But right at the top of the list, along with grief, is shame and guilt. These are feelings that nobody willfully wants to have. We run away from that as much as we possibly can. If there's a way to avoid it, we do. So there's an issue right there. So what happens when somebody says yes if they're trying to avoid that shame and guilt that we talked about? That's the other side of the ledger. It's kind of like an algebraic question, so to speak, an algebraic problem. So on one side, we say no. We feel guilt and shame. On the other side, we say yes. Now, what can that bring? Typically, if it's not something that you can honestly give to somebody and feel happy about doing, or feel like you're being good by being of service, you're going to feel angry. You're going to own that anger. You're going to feel frustrated, annoyed, put out, bitter, resentful. And not only that, you're going to aim it at the other person. So what's the positive of all that? Well, the number one is that we avoid guilt and shame for ourselves. But it gets us that we can have righteous indignation. In other words, we can justify our anger at the other person, and we can put it on them like they're the bad person instead of you. So that's the positive of that, if we want to call that a positive. But that's why many people end up saying yes to things that they don't actually really want to do. So let's break this down. Here, we always get feelings, no matter what. Whether we say yes, whether we say no. We're going to have feelings. But if you're the type of person that has difficulty making boundaries with people, again, the no is going to bring guilt and shame and anger at yourself. If you say yes, it brings anger, annoyance, resentment, but anger at the other person. So you're much more likely to do that. But then we have to have the question here, as we start to summarize this. Having consideration for others is not compatible with being angry and bitter because somebody requests something from you. And saying yes because you would rather be angry at somebody else instead of feeling your own guilt and shame is selfish. So here's the goal. The goal is to resolve your traumas. And typically it's unresolved childhood traumas. And if we can do that, you don't have to feel guilt and shame for saying no. And you actually don't have to feel angry for saying yes. These are not things that just happen and they have to happen. They do not. You can say no and yes from a strength position, not a position of trauma. So let's go over some definitions just so I can drill a little bit deeper into this conversation. So the term selfish, we should know what it means, but let's define it. Selfish means that we lack consideration for other people and we're concerned mainly for our own personal profit or pleasure. Saying no is not selfish, because if we were selfish, we would only be considering ourselves, right? So when we say yes or no to somebody for the right reasons, we're actually doing a good thing, because it's not a good thing to be angry and resentful at other people when we say yes. So it's actually a lot more selfish to say yes to somebody, because we're doing it for our own purpose, and our own purpose would be to avoid our shame and guilt. So let's define selfless or unselfish. You're concerned more with the welfare of others than with your own. And there you go. If you were more concerned with somebody else's welfare, you would say no. Because why would you want to make it okay to own your anger at other people? If people ask you something, they're in their rights to do that. There's nothing wrong. They can ask you to do 15 to 20 things. But you're also in the right to say no. So it doesn't make any sense to be angry at people when you say yes to them. So let's take a look at the word altruistic, which I think is an interesting word. It means doing something for others without the expectation of reward. And I find this interesting because I think the term altruistic is very debatable. Because even if you were to say yes to somebody, let's say you wanted to donate money, you wanted to donate time to your favorite charity, to a person, whatever it might be, you actually do get something out of it. What do you get out of it? Well, it feels good to give. So I don't know if the term altruistic really exists. You know, you may not expect a cash reward from somebody or to get a raise or to get some type of promotion, but when you do something for somebody, when you feel of service to somebody, when you are honored with the thought or the deed of helping another human being, that happiness that you feel inside is all the rewards you need, but it's still a reward. So I'm not sure the word altruistic exists, but I do know that that's the way that you should give to people. So let's finish with this. I want to give you the moral of the story. Number one, saying no is not selfish if done for the right reasons. Number two, saying yes is not healthy, is not selfless, and it's not even generous if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you can't say yes with a smile on your face and be happy about it, then for sure you need to say no. So that's my little speech on having boundaries, and one more time, saying no is not selfish. My name is Joe Peroni, and this has been the Rise Above Project. If you like the show, please recommend it to others, and hopefully I can get some more subscribers. Thank you very much. I will talk to you next time.